Okay, so today we're going to talk about why I believe using more diagrams in your business will actually increase your profits. I am an absolute avid advocate of using process mapping, of using brainstorming, of using digital whiteboards, of using lots of visual things in our business. And I want to explain today why I believe that every business owner should do this, and it's a skill that you and your entire team need to master in order to make the most out of this time you have together and be as productive as humanly possible. So let's go into this and explore this interesting topic. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. Okay, cool. So today I'm going to be talking all about visually mapping out stuff in your business. Now, we've been doing this for many years. I am a visual learner, and I'm one of the 65-ish% of the population that are. That means that we learn better when we see stuff. Now, I can listen to audiobooks and I learn from that and actually do that a lot. I'm more of an audio person than I'm a reading person. I'm not a very good reader, but I'm a very good visual learner, which means that if I get a picture, a diagram, then that's how I learn. And that's the same, as I said, for about 65% of the population. So the chances are, even if you're not a visual learner, a number of people in your organization will be. And so this is something that will definitely benefit them. But actually, even if you are a different type of learner, a tactile learner, an auditory learner, you still retain huge amounts of information when you see it visually if it's presented correctly. So when I'm talking about visual stuff here, just to put this into context, let's think about a diagram, a flowchart, or a mind map, or a brainstorm when you're on a whiteboard with post-it notes. All these things are visual ways of basically presenting information to people. You could just talk about it and have nothing to look at. But actually, when you have a multimodal approach to your sharing of information and your learning, it's like in school when you'd watch a video on something and then you do a practical exercise, then you do some sums, and then you go and learn something by rote and have a test. All of those methods of learning are there to increase the retention rate of that information, and therefore, and they're done because it's multimodal. And it's the same thing going here. You want to convey information from one person to another in your business or amongst a team to collaborate, coordinate, to communicate more effectively, or using more visual tools in your business, will allow you to do that far more effectively. Now, we use this visual approach to so many different parts of our business. So for example, our website planning, we have wireframes for our website. I don't tell my website developer, hey, I want you to create me a website. In the top right hand corner, I want a button. I want that button to say this. I don't sit there and just talk about it. I don't just write him a long description about it. I don't write a 50-page essay on this is how I want you to make my website look. I just basically draw a diagram for him. Or we'll do it together. We'll brainstorm. We'll do what's called a wireframe. So we're mapping something out, and that sort of sounds obvious because it's quite a visual thing. They're creating a visual spatial thing, i.e., your website, your web page on the internet, and therefore giving them a wireframe mapped out in a similar sort of structure so they can see, okay, this bit needs to go there, that bit needs to go there. That sort of makes sense. So most people don't have any problem with thinking that how useful that would be. So planning a website, doing it visually, yes, that's massively, massively important and fairly obvious. But actually, a lot of other stuff that we do visually in our business, other businesses don't. And I think you're missing a trick. So one of the things I've talked about in a previous episode, I'm not going to go into huge detail here, but one of the things we do with using a sort of mind mapping approach is to mind map is the wrong word. We use more of a brainstorm approach to our goal planning. So each quarter, we have a quarterly goal meeting, and there we discuss what we're going to focus on for the coming months. And during that meeting, or the pre-meeting, I should say, for that, is when I sit down and I basically brainstorm what is all the stuff that we could do right now. Let's just throw it onto a digital whiteboard, and I use an app called Lucidchart for doing all of my sort of stuff because it's simple and easy, and it's a really solid quality app. And I basically put on all the ideas, and then I rank them by moving them around, literally moving it's like Post-it notes on a computer. I mean, you could do this on a board. And I know people, my clients, some of them who've got teams that work in office together, they'll do this literally on a whiteboard and get Post-it notes and then do exactly the same thing. And that's actually even better because it's tactile as well as visual, as well as auditory, as well as text on there as well. So that's a really good way. But I work digitally, I work online, so I do this using digital versions of whiteboards. And so we whack all our Post-it notes on that, and then you can basically move them around relative to each other. So which ones are more important, which ones are harder or easier to do, and therefore you can basically give yourself a relative goal structure, as in this goal is more important than this one, therefore I'm going to do it first. And it's like, so doing that visually is super useful for me to get stuff out of my head and organize it. But then when I try to then convey the importance of each part of or each goal to the team, that's when the absolute goal comes in. I talked about in the title of this episode, how using diagrams will increase your profits. And what I mean by that, or one of the things I mean by that is, if you can get your team on board to understand the vision that you have for your company and understand why you've parked certain things and you've escalated certain things to a higher priority, and you can get that over to them quickly, then they'll get on board and start actually just working towards creating your vision, whether that's getting more sales or developing a new marketing strategy. Because you've done it visually, you can very easily say, look, this one was more important than task A was more important than task B, and it's just a different position on the board. And it's easier to do task A than it is to do task C because that's why it's become a higher priority. And doing that visually, you can have 50, 100 different things that you could do in your business right now, but you're only going to focus on 5. And by putting it into that visual way, it's easy for everybody to very quickly, with a little bit of explanation, you explaining what it is they're looking at and how that things relate to each other, then you can really easily convey quite complex decisions that you've made by just them saying, oh yeah, I can see how that one would take longer than that one, therefore yeah, I can see why, or I can see how that would impact the business higher than this one. And rather than just being a long list of stuff, or you're just basically talking to somebody for 20 minutes and trying to remember this complex, we chose task B over task C because of this. Like, doing it visually, it just makes it easier. And I know I'm a visual learner, so I'm biased towards this, but I know from working with my team that not all of them are visual learners. Well, statistically, they probably aren't. I've not actually asked them all, which I need to. But anyway, so that's aside. I know from doing this with them, suddenly they get it. Like, now they're on board. And the same thing goes for training. And this is, again, one of those things I just can't believe that businesses, or even I, as a business in my early days, didn't map out my process, my training processes. Like, how am I going to teach somebody to do something in my business? And like, a process is not just a one-off event. It's not like you go do task A, that is your job done. It's like, no, you do task A and then task B and then someone else does task C, and then it comes back to me for task D, and it goes back to somebody else, and it triggers off an automation over there, or we send an email to somebody over there, or we speak to the client over here. And like, trying to get that complexity of how any really complex part of your business, or even semi-complex part of your business, is structured and connected together. Trying to get that over in any other way than creating a diagram that connects the dots. I mean, they say, connecting the dots in people's brains, then they get it and then they're on board with you. Like, you can literally connect the dots when you do it grammatically, because you can draw a line between two things and say these two things are connected. There's a connection, there's a relationship between those. And if you get into creating diagrams and understanding about process mapping, then there's loads of notation you can use. There's actually a whole standardization, one we call business process mapping notation 2.0, so BPMN 2.0. Now, there's a whole standardization. You can go deep on this stuff and get geeky on it, but you don't need to become a flowchart and a process geek to get massive value out of using things like simple flowcharts. Like, if I go back 5 years, I had no idea what BPMN was, or over 6 years, no idea what BPMN was. I used to make stuff up. I used to just draw pretty pictures. I used to have like a picture of an email, and then I'd draw a nice line, and then I'd have a picture of a web page, and and it still conveyed the information really well. In fact, it may have even conveyed it in some ways quicker and easier at a high level. But then when you want to get into the detail of stuff and get geeky, yeah, you can go down that route, but you don't need to. Just getting started with this, if it's, we're now talking just about mapping out your processes, it's just about like trying to explain a multi-step, multi-person, multi-stage process to somebody and doing that any other way than creating a diagram to show them how to do it, to me, is just archaic and impossible. And I know, because I've tried and failed miserably. I've tried to get people on board to help me with stuff, and it just ends up a nightmare. You start mapping stuff out, and actually even better, you start getting your team to start mapping stuff out. And suddenly, they are now thinking about that process. They're thinking about, what am I doing each day? What is the first thing I do? What's the second thing I do? Who do I speak to now? And when they start doing that, they start thinking about, okay, well, there's a bottleneck here, or this could be improved. Because you've now got it down somewhere really quickly. It's not like writing like long-winded operation manuals and recording videos, which, I advocate all that. But this is just like literally them dumping out. I do step 1, step 2, step 3. It's not a checklist, because checklists are linear. They go in a straight line, and they're confusing really quickly when you start branching stuff off. So that's why the diagram is important. But by doing this, you get your team into this mindset of, now what I do is actually down on paper. I can start actually improving it. And again, going back to the title of this episode, how does diagrammating, how does creating more diagrams, how does that increase profits? Because your team suddenly now are empowered to think more about what they are doing, improve their processes, and therefore ultimately increase the profits of your business, because your productivity goes up. And if they're doing profitable things in your business, if they're doing the right kind of things, then doing more of what they do should increase your profits. And so again, another easy transition, or an easy way to explain why diagrams are so important. We talked a little bit about this before, but brainstorming is one of those things that if you've never done it with your team, you're missing out on something massive. And now, brainstorming is a visual thing. It's similar to the goal idea I was talking about before, about getting stuff out. But brainstorming, the way we do it, and the way, there's lots of books on this stuff, so you can go in and dig into those if you want. But it's literally just a case of like let's just get in a room, and we do it digitally. So I live in Sweden, and my staff are in the Philippines and South Africa and in Pakistan. And we get in a room and we go, right, here's the problem. Here's the thing we're going to talk about. Here's the challenge that we've got in our business. Now, everybody just tell me what you think. Now, throw stuff out there. No idea is a bad idea. It's just like literally throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But, and literally we can do this visually really, really well. So you can basically throw post-it notes if you, in a room, or digitally throw digital post-its onto your app. And as I said before, we use one called Lucidchart, and you're basically just get ideas out. And then what you can do, and what's really powerful, is you then apply the same models that I talked about goal planning, so an impact versus effort matrix. You apply that to your brainstorm afterwards, and suddenly start prioritizing which of those tasks are actually useful. So you can just say, which ones are way out there that it's great to have the idea, but no, we're not going to progress it forward, and which ones are actually really worth actually diving into a bit more, and then you can explore them more and go forward. So brainstorming, you've got to do that visually. I mean, you could just write a long list, and I've seen it done at conferences and things, and people just basically write a long list. But it's easy to lose track of stuff. Whereas if each individual thing is on its own sort of card, so to speak, and you can stick it, and then you can group things together, you can move them around, you can, as I say, prioritize things, you can push things up. Once you've done that initial brainstorming, you then start actually looking at the information and sort of processing it. Much easier to do when you use that brainstorming techniques of using post-it note type things. And then another thing we use them for, and again, just today I've been doing this. So with my team, we're planning out a sales marketing funnel, and it's like combines a series of there's YouTube ads. We've got different sources. We've got email source. We've got Facebook sources. We're coming into a landing page, to a webinar, to a call booking system, to a application form, to a confirmation page, to another page, to another page. We've got a series of emails that are kicking off. We've got what happens if people don't do this? What happens if people don't do that? What happens if they come here? If they come there? In the system. And like before, I used to map stuff out. I tried to put that all together, even in a task management app. And I'm a massive advocate of Asana and ClickUp and all these task management apps are absolutely fundamental for the business. But trying to sort of get out of your head that complex multi-stage process, like what any simple marketing funnel is. Ours is a very simple marketing funnel, in the big picture, and it's still, probably got 20 different moving parts and elements to it that all sort of trigger off other bits, and they connect back, and then we add people in at different stages, and doing that visually is just simple. And like literally we can communicate. Like I brought a new person into the team yesterday to help out with some of the technical stuff and set up some of our automations. And I could just say, look, this is the part of the work you're doing. This is how it fits into the bigger picture. This is what's going to happen. And it's all there in a beautiful diagram that you can then actually, show somebody, rather than trying to explain it all and go from web page to web page. Say, oh yeah, this web page goes to the next web page, and like showing them, web page 1, web page 2, and then if they click this button here and you point to the button on the screen, then they're going to go to this other web page. But then go back, if they click the other button, it's going to go, it gets super confusing. You're probably confused listening to this, and that's the point. You can't easily describe stuff which has multiple connections in different directions. You can't easily describe that stuff in either words or in actually written words or verbal words or any other way, in my opinion, apart from actually creating a diagram for it and doing that again. Back to the title of this episode, how does it increase your profits? Because your team can collaborate better. They can work more efficiently, more productively. They can get more done because they know what they're meant to be doing and they know how they fit in. Their role fits into the bigger picture, which is what you've mapped out. And so that is why I believe that diagramming, that using diagrams in your business is absolutely fundamental to your success and to your ability to increase profits. It massively reduces errors, in my opinion, on complex multi-step processes, on funnels. It allows you to collaborate on ideas, on brainstorming. It also massively reduces the amount of time it takes to train new people to come into your world, the complex systems you have in your business. Once you get those out of your head and down in a way that people can see visually, they can enter into that productively far quicker than any ever before you will ever think possible if you don't already do this. And yeah, that's it. That is basically my little pitch, my little rant, all about why I believe that not just process mapping, but diagramming, using visual tools. And we do it all, as I said, through an app called Lucidchart. So whether it's brainstorming or it's process mapping, it's flowcharts, it's mapping out funnels, it's wireframing websites, it's doing planning goals, whatever it is, we do it all visually and we do it all collaboratively online. So that's it. Hope you found that useful. If you have, please do let me know by leaving me a quick review, hitting subscribe, and make sure you share this with your friends and family or friends and colleagues maybe. And yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave me a review. I appreciate it. And if you want me to cover any other topic in the near future, then just let me know and I'll be happy to do so. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to this episode. I'm well aware there are hundreds of great business podcasts out there and you chose to listen to this one, and for that I am truly grateful. Hopefully what you heard today took you one step closer to building a successful business so you can share your passion with the world and serve an ever-growing number of people. If you got value out of today's episode, then so will someone else you know. By sharing with others what has helped you along your way, you will grow your influence and be the guy or girl that everybody wants to know. So please hit the share button right now, and also remember to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. It's impossible for me to cover absolutely everything in these podcasts, so please do head over to systemizeyoursuccess.com right now and download the show notes, transcriptions, and some of my best frameworks and systems for free. Thanks again for tuning in and being a part of this amazing community. Until next time, this is Dr. Steve Day, and you've been listening to Systemize Your Success.